So before we get started, just a couple of intro and housekeeping items. So again, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to attend our interactive session today. Um, Before we get started, as I mentioned, I wanted to remind everybody that this webinar is being recorded. It is an interactive session. It will be recorded and it will be shared with all the registrants and attendees after the event is complete. At any given point of time, if you feel that you have any questions about the content of the webinar or about the SafeBreach product, please send them to us via the Q&A function. We will be answering all the questions during the Q&A session. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So today's session essentially is, as I mentioned, it's an interactive session. It's focused on how the SafeBreach platform can allow you to successfully break down and understand advanced malware attacks, including the constantly evolving ransomware threats, understand their scope, understand what the attacker is thinking, and successfully operationalize your organizational defenses to protect the organization. This session will be a conversation and not just a pure slideshow. Will be a conversation between myself and Francisco about how security teams can better prepare themselves for the evolving landscape and how they can improve the efficacy of their overall security operations and minimize the mean time to detect and mean time to respond. So as I mentioned, there's going to be Francisco and myself. Let me just give a quick overview of our speakers. So Francisco has over 2 decades of cybersecurity experience, and he has held various roles, including a security architect to a global technical director. Currently, he is a principal security engineer at SafeBreach, and he focuses primarily on evangelizing the value of adversary simulation and helping clients measure the effectiveness of their security controls to drive continuous improvement, essentially helping security operations become more effective and efficient. I, on the other hand, am KJ, or Cost Objective. Hello, everybody. I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at SafeBreach. I am a telecommunications engineer by education, but I've always been passionate about cybersecurity, and hence I'm in this role. And I've been in the cybersecurity/technology marketing space for the last 12 years. So enough with the introductions. Let's go ahead and get started with our session today. So since you're attending, obviously, a cybersecurity session, a cybersecurity vendor session, you're very well aware of the constantly evolving threat landscape. But what does that really mean? That term is just thrown about every single slick that you see, every single email that you see. What does that really even mean? So I actually looked it up on Google, and based on a definition from Kaspersky, it apparently means it's the entirety of potential and identified cyber threats affecting a particular sector, a group of users, time period, and so on. The word potential threats has special significance here because these potential threats depend heavily on the context. And what I mean by context here is you're going to have specific threats for the financial industry, specific threats for the healthcare industry, specific for the insurance industry, for the critical infrastructure industry. And given how many verticals and sub-verticals there are today, depending on who you ask, you can only imagine the number of opportunities that an attacker is offered. So think how many, he just has to throw something at some vertical in order for it to stick and cause chaos. So while security tools are getting smarter, the attackers are constantly in this cat and mouse game trying to beat that security tool and try and figure out where can I leverage my current tool set and how can I go in and cause havoc in their organization. You should realize that these attacks or their attacks are constantly getting more brutal, depending on, they don't care about integrity anymore. They will go ahead and attack a healthcare hospital, hold their stuff for ransom purely because they want some money, or they'll go shut down a pipeline because, you know what, I want money, give me money. And these attacks are changing faster than, as you know, in The Walking Dead or any other fictional zombie movie, the zombie virus. It keeps changing constantly. Just look at the stats on the screen. Ransomware, one of the most prevalent and recognized advanced malware threats, cost organizations nearly $20 billion in 2021. And to put that in context, by comparison, NASA's budget, NASA, our space agency, our budget for the last 3 to 4 years ranged between 20 to $25 billion annually. So just imagine this, that just 1 year of causing havoc cost organizations $20 billion, which could fuel NASA for an entire year for space exploration. Additionally, another study found that 93% of company networks could easily be penetrated by an attacker. And why is that? Probably because enterprise security is getting so complicated, it is getting so complex. We keep adding more tools to fight these attackers. And each of these tools may have some vulnerabilities, and attackers don't care what tools you have. They will basically go ahead and just be like, okay, let me go and try and hunt for a particular vulnerability. And because it is so difficult to identify each and everything, and as security practitioners, you all know your pipeline of alerts is never ending. So it's very difficult to keep track of everything that needs to be fixed right away. And the attackers obviously do know about it. That's why they take advantage of it. And it becomes more prevalent even in the third statistic. That's what the statistic is. When Log4j became prevalent, once it was discovered in November, December last year, attack on organizations nearly jumped 50% as compared to 2020. And majority of these just came in the last 2 months of Q4. So everything was going hunky-dory. I wouldn't say hunky-dory, but everything was going fine. But then suddenly attacks jumped 50%. And every single week, there was a new vulnerability that was being discovered that was consistently being leveraged to gain entry into networks and pass on ransomware or pass on something else to cause more damage. This is why these attackers are getting consistently smarter. They keep hitting you, and they're evolving faster. That's what, in overall, we mean by an evolving threat landscape, that things change at a very rapid pace, and attackers are getting smart, but you need to be one step ahead of them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the key there also is the speed of the attack. Needs to be recognized, and attackers have gotten a lot better with regards to automation and sharing intelligence amongst themselves, establishing a viable underground market of services where you've got a way to rent the ransomware as a service infrastructure to deliver the attacks based on a new vulnerability that has hit. So within hours of a new vulnerability hitting, there's automated scanning that's taking place to identify vulnerable systems that can be compromised. And the bad guys don't necessarily care. They just need to get a foothold, and then they'll just flip that access over to initial access buyers, right? So these initial access brokers may not necessarily have the skills or the motivation to go after a target. They just care to collect $100 for access to an organization and then repeat that, over tens of thousands of orgs.
And so essentially, because attackers are obviously human, so they also have FOMO, fear of missing out. They don't want to lose out on a payday. So hey, if an attacker has published some way of breaching somebody or taking advantage and making a quick buck, why not me? Let me go ahead and actually do that as well. So that tells you that these guys are getting smarter. They have their own underground marketplaces, and they will continue coming at you. So I have to just obviously just remind people again that these attackers aren't just focused on these high priority, much publicized events like, say, Log4j vulnerability, or 2 years ago in 2020 there was SolarWinds, or other publicized vulnerabilities like the Colonial Pipeline. Some ransomware came about, and they decided to hold a gas pipeline for a week, hostage for a week. And you're obviously you're aware of the current geopolitical situation in Europe and Asia, and threat actors thrive on these things. They thrive on these regional flare-ups or some sort of opportunity to cause worldwide damage. It's easy for them to just take something and then replicate that worldwide. And CISA, NSA, FBI, they've been consistently releasing advisories and updates leading to some of the headlines that you're seeing here. And mind you, these headlines are just from the last couple of weeks, or just 3 weeks or 4 weeks. There are a lot more of similar looking headlines of advisories advising critical infrastructures, healthcare, financial institutions to protect themselves. Because just today I got an SC Magazine alert essentially telling me that financial institutions have been put on a advisory watch to be careful of potential cyber attacks from state-sponsored threat attackers. And so all this essentially goes to show that the attackers don't care what's happening. They're just opportunistic. They're singularly focused essentially on causing damage and achieving their objectives. And a lot of times those objectives are monetary. Somebody is just trying to do mischief. They could be personal. Hey, I want to take vendetta against you. Or it could just be motivated by a nation state. So that's something that security teams today have to constantly deal with.
Yeah, and I think it's also a good point that these are opportunistic attacks for the most part. Yes, there are targeted attacks, and you've got nation states that are going after intellectual property, or well motivated and well funded for other reasons. But for the most part, you're talking about ransomware just being a crime of opportunity, really, right? You've got unprotected systems out there, RDP systems that are exposed to the internet that are easily identifiable on sites like Shodan that allow that initial foothold. And I think as an industry, right, a lot of organizations have moved towards an investment phase where they're making investments in security controls. They're making investments in teams. There's a focus on understanding that security protects a business and enables a business, but the attackers, still are able to get in and are still able to move around. And even though we have tools to identify all of the activity, no attack is said and done. So if someone gets an initial foothold, they still need to take several steps to get to the end goal. I think there's an opportunity there for security practitioners to be able to detect and disrupt those actions as they're taking place. And the faster that we can do that, the better we can limit the impact of potential breach.
And just hopping on what Francisco was saying, you can go ahead and given that how rapidly an attacker does change their tactics, organizations often face this question: how do I really respond? I mean, certainly their most common answer that most security vendors try and pitch them is, hey, buy my tool, buy new tools. Sure, it can help, but it can only compound the problem for later, because you have to consider the fact that there's training for that new tool, actually operationalizing it, integrating it in your security stack. And then how do you optimize your current stack to actually work with that tool? But however, if you were to optimize your current security configuration or your current security stack to fight whatever is thrown at you, you are probably a lot better prepared for any of the advanced attacks than considering buying a new tool, because buying a new tool can potentially take weeks, months, sometimes years, and it can cost a lot of money. So, you have to also remember that not every attack is directed at you. If JP Morgan was breached, not necessarily that Bank of America is going to get breached, or a smaller firm is going to get breached. Of course, that's just a probability. But if you have advanced knowledge and the ability to defend against a potential attack that was directed at someone in your vertical, why wouldn't you take it? And this is where breach and attack simulation comes into play. Gartner has summarized it really nicely, and in these 4 bullet points, I'm not going to read them, but why they feel is that the breach and attack simulations breach and attack simulation tools can help you fight advanced attacks and attackers. It's purely because, as Francisco was saying, they allow you to test your controls, which is what is needed. Test your existing configurations, test your controls to see if they're optimized and that they can withstand at least what is known in the marketplace, in threat marketplace or threat landscape. And if there are gaps, you quickly identify them and fix them. And or if you can't fix them, quickly identify where you need those security investments. Secondly, if you have breach and attack simulation tools, you can run simulated attacks to understand the attack scope, understand what the attacker could potentially be thinking, and where can they go next, and what damage can they cause. So you understand the potential attack scope for the attack. Next thing, which is really important, this is where the operational efficiency and efficacy of the security teams kind of comes in, is you allow your security team to maintain that state of readiness. I'm not saying go to DEFCON 1 every time a new threat comes in, but if you are at DEFCON 3 or DEFCON 2, or even 4 for that matter, where you know you have at least covered your bases, that a new attacker has come in, you know you don't have any gaps on certain security tools where they could potentially come in from, you're covered. You can take your time, analyze the attack. So you allow your security teams to maintain that state of operational readiness. And lastly, obviously, if over time you may want to replace a security tool, you may want to update a security tool, breach and attack simulation tools will actually let you test that tool to ensure that it is what you actually need, rather than just putting money in a tool that you don't need and then cribbing about, hey, I did not get enough ROI out of this tool. So this breach and attack simulation tools not only let you optimize your current security stack, but if you are considering anything new, they would go ahead and let you even test the efficacy of those and ensure that they meet the standards that you want for your organization.
I think there's another element here. As the attackers are using a lot of automation, it's really important to be able to take a similar approach. Particularly because there's a broad need for offensive security skills and just security defender skills in general. Right, the information security industry has just so many job openings, has been for many years. And while we're cultivating a lot of that, universities formalizing cybersecurity programs now, which is really helpful, there's still a need to automate attacks to be able to run those at scale. And what BAS tools provide is the ability to put a junior analyst on such a tool, run attacks, and be able to provide some immediate output and value as to how those controls are performing, without necessarily having an OSCP or being a pen tester. So I think that the tools definitely bring another dimension that's much needed in the industry here.
Thanks, Francisco. So since obviously you're at a SafeBreach event, let me just quickly give you a quick overview of where SafeBreach stands. So SafeBreach was the pioneer in the breach and attack simulation space and is the most widely used continuous enterprise security validation platform. Just FYI, breach and attack simulation is type of security validation. That's the category. And everything that I mentioned before about being able to learn and adapt your defenses to an attacker's new TTPs, anything that they throw at you, is in essence what SafeBreach allows you to do. We provide you tools that replicate a hacker. We let you get into their mindset, let you think like a hacker, and allow you to ensure your business integrity, business continuity is constantly maintained. We want to ensure that your business doesn't get affected. SafeBreach was essentially designed to provide a holistic view of an enterprise security posture. And again, the bottom line here is that we allow organizations to understand if their security investments are actually working or not. So essentially optimize, and again, security investments can be people, security investments can be your actual tools. So not only identify gaps in your security controls that could quickly be fixed and optimized, but at the same time, ensure that your people, as Francisco was mentioning, ensure that your people are ready for anything that might come at them. So what makes SafeBreach tick? We like to call these pillars, and our platform essentially is we leverage these 4 pillars to essentially improve SOC efficacy and ensure operational readiness against advanced threats. And quickly speaking, the attack pillar allows you to unleash attacks just like an attacker would do, with the purpose that I need to know if I can affect my organizational network, say with a particular ransomware, to achieve your goal. The analyze pillar essentially allows the security teams to understand and visualize the attack surface and identify gaps. Remediate allows you to leverage the insights that you gain, contextual insights that you gain from these attack simulations, and implement the fixes and even prioritize your vulnerability patching. So we The insights that you gain from attacks will allow you to understand how an attack would potentially work in your environment. And if there are vulnerabilities on certain tools that could potentially lead an attacker to your crown jewels, we even help you prioritize them. The report pillar allows you to quickly, efficiently, and most importantly, visually communicate the status of your posture, your current business risk with your key stakeholders. Key stakeholders obviously being your CISO, your CIO, your executives, your board members. Lastly, integration. I mean, it's a pillar, but it's horizontal, so consider that as a base. Integrations allow the other pillars to run effectively and more efficiently. The overall goal, again, of the platform was to unify people, processes, and technologies to reveal your risk, optimize them, and essentially promote cross-functional efficacy. Because obviously, SOCs, advanced SOCs, or even other SOCs have multiple security teams, each of which own a tool, and they may or may not always communicate with each other. But when you have a common objective of, say, hey, let's run attacks and see what is affected based on the current threat landscape, everybody can work towards optimizing all of their controls so that the organization as a general doesn't get affected. And we help you achieve that by integrating with a wide range of technologies that can help you optimize your people and your security controls. Now, let's take a quick look at these pillars, and then Francisco can actually demonstrate them in action in our platform. So, attack with purpose, that was the first pillar. I mean, the whole objective is SafeBreach allows you to think like a hacker. So, in order to replicate a constantly evolving hacker, you need to have the ability to rapidly actually execute multiple advanced attacks, come in from all angles to see whether you can actually stand. It's a pressure test of sorts. And you need to understand how these attacks actually work, or how the attacker would actually think about going from step A to step B in their kill chain. And so SafeBreach makes it all possible for you in a very easy manner through our Hackers Playbook, which is, by the way, the industry's largest attack playbook with over 24,000 attacks. And it keeps getting updated every single day based on any new threats that might be discovered, any new alerts that might be coming in. A key contributor to this playbook is obviously our research team, which not only publishes new and original threat research based on their sources in the dark web or whatever they do, but they also help us operationalize it and put these attacks in the playbook. And SafeBreach is the only vendor that offers a BAS vendor that offers a 24-hour SLA to operationalize any new attacks that are found in critical alerts, like a CERT alert or a CISA, FBI, NSA advisory. And you don't have to just worry about, or you don't just have to focus on attacks that are created by us. Say, for example, you trust intelligence from Anomaly or Unit 42 or Threat Quotient or whoever is your threat intelligence provider, and you have a feed that you really trust that makes more relevant sense for your vertical. We even integrate with threat intelligence feeds that allow you to customize and personalize attacks. You can take that IOC, you can create custom attacks and personalize those attacks using our platform and run them in your environment so that you are better protected against threats that matter the most to you. So that's something really cool that we do. And once again, once you've run these attacks, it is obviously critical to understand that what are these results really telling you? When you speak with 10 different people, everybody asks for different metrics. Everybody asks for different, information of, what was the IOC that I need to implement this and that. But everybody has heard about the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which is, one of the most widely recognized attack frameworks in the industry today. And we make it very easy to map your simulation results, your attack results against the MITRE ATT&CK framework, to help you understand and effectively communicate your risk with all risk posture with all involved people, because everybody who is following the MITRE ATT&CK understands, the different IOCs, they understand the severity, and they can easily go ahead and make those changes. I remember I told you one of the earlier things was BAS tools help you understand what an attacker might be thinking. By that, we help you understand the attack scope. We help you understand You can leverage our breach explorer that Francisco will share with you shortly, help you understand what the attack kill chain looks like, what could have been the potential targets, and what could be some of the paths that they could take to reach your crown jewels, essentially. Next thing is obviously our insights module. Insights module, as you know, insights are contextual insights that this module allows you to take the results that you've gained, the context that you've gained from these attacks, and pass these fixes in terms of packages to your security controls via an API that help the concerned team fix and remediate the gaps and update those configurations. So if there are configuration drifts, if there are configuration changes, once the attack is run and once you visualize those gaps, you can easily take that and with the click of a single button, you can pass that information on to the concerned team that is managed in security control, telling them to go fix it. And because we offer the largest technology partner ecosystem of any BAS vendor, we pretty much integrate with majority of the security tools that are out there. This allows your team to rapidly make changes, fix gaps, and improve the overall efficacy and efficiency of your threat detection and response. And once you've run all this, this goes on the level of an analyst, a SOC manager, but then the CISO, CIO is asking, hey, so how well protected are we? Nowadays, board members and investors are concerned about cyber threat readiness. How do you actually communicate your risk score, or how do you actually communicate your risk level to somebody who may or may not understand, what percentage of malware was stopped, or what hashes we were protected against, and so on. So that's why we created SafeBreach flexible dashboards, and these allow you to actually map and track your metrics and track your growth and your risk and trends over a period of time. This immensely simplifies your communications about organizational security, whatever trends you're monitoring, whatever trends you've observed, and communicate that with the key stakeholders in a similar manner, so that everybody sees the same metrics, they understand and work off of the same metrics and same information. That way, one person isn't communicating that, hey, we are protected against, say, Log4j vulnerabilities, and the other person is saying, hey, we are protected against CVE, blah, 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 that might be coming under Log4j. So everybody sees a unified dashboard, and you can customize these dashboards to your heart's extent based on every single metric, your security controls, tactics, threat intelligence, everything. And so this obviously makes it very easy to monitor trends over time, and immensely helps for compliance purposes, because compliance is the next big thing, and this helps you immensely with compliance purposes. I had in our attack slide, I had briefly mentioned about our security research team, our SafeBreach Research team. I just wanted to kind of give them a shout out, because they are the ones that actually help us fuel our content, create the content. This slide is basically just some of the amazing work that they've done over the last 10 months, where in under 24 hours, they have operationalized all the new threats and new attack TTPs that were identified in not only just the US CERT alerts, but other critical alerts like Israel, Australia, UK, New Zealand. Anywhere that a pertinent threat comes in, they quickly operationalize that, put that attack in our product. And this allows our customers and users to rapidly test their organization against these new attacks and prepare for them in case they're targeted. Remember, I had mentioned earlier that why wouldn't you take that opportunity to test and prepare for an attack when you know it could potentially come to you? So this is, and then this again is of particular significance to financial industries, healthcare industries, or other critical infrastructure industries where either user data or financial data or compliance related information, or just the integrity of the critical infrastructure is in play. So that's something that our research team does really well. Again, we're the only vendor that offers a 24-hour SLA. And again,
I just wanted to add to that, and maybe the previous slide a little bit as well. And the goal, obviously is to look at your defenses from the point of view of the adversary. Like, where are they going to be able to get in? And if you can identify that first, you have an advantage, right? You're going to be able to improve your mean time to detection, mean time to response, mean time to contain, a potential breach based on an initial, compromise, right? So if somebody gets phished and they clicked on a link, I mean, as much training, security awareness training as you might have, someone will be tired at some point. They may be easier on their phone to slip of the finger and click on a link that they normally would not do on a desktop, on their laptop. And so, what happens from that point on? Do you have visibility into it? I think that's all really important. And just talking about, what security leaders need, I think is a bit of situational awareness to understand where those gaps exist. And a platform like SafeBreach allows them to very quickly gain that awareness by unleashing thousands of attacks in chaos mode, essentially, allowing these attacks to identify where those gaps reside within the environment, and then begin to focus, from that 30,000-foot view into a more manageable set of attack scenarios that'll help validate and improve over time the different defenses that may be available, maybe inform the strategy as to where new defenses are needed, where changes must be made.
That makes perfect sense. And so before Francisco actually dives into what that means and how it actually looks like, and before he wows you with the demo, I wanted to quickly break down how you as a SafeBreach customer would prepare for an advanced attack like ransomware threat or any other advanced malware threat. So for example, tomorrow a new ransomware called Francisco comes in. The CISA issues a advisory saying, hey, Francisco ransomware is out there prevalent and you got to protect yourselves. What would happen? As I mentioned, the research team would start looking at what the TTPs are. They would go ahead and operationalize them into attacks. You would choose to run these attacks either directly from our known attacks report, which is, again, a cool place to visualize, your threat exposure as it stands. And you can even click to, one-click run all the simulations, and that would run everything that is involved with it. You can choose to filter them in our playbook, or you can run it directly from our scenarios, which is an easy way to run all the attacks that are involved with that particular ransomware. Once you're done doing that, you can quickly analyze the results on our dashboards. You can quickly analyze the results on our MITRE heat map. You can visualize what the attacker or Francisco might be thinking of doing. You can then leverage these contextual insights that you gain from running these attacks, go make those fixes, and eventually then you can go ahead and communicate all this information to your key stakeholders, who obviously are, very well affected by the news, saying, hey, Francisco ransomware is a huge ransomware. It's all over the news. How well are we protected? So you can easily do that by then taking the results, putting in your dashboards, and communicating that upwards. The one key thing that I want to stress, and I cannot stress enough, is that you have to remember this is not a one and done process. Because the attacker is constantly evolving, the attacks are constantly evolving, you might be ready for Francisco ransomware at this point. What if Francisco 2.0 comes out tomorrow? Like many of them have come out. Are you still protected? So this is an always ongoing process. That's how you improve the operational readiness of your security teams. You have to continuously test for whatever attacks might be out there. And again, one other important thing is that as you add new tools or as new policies come into play, or you add like a cloud network, or you add any new configuration changes, new users, you create potential gaps, you create potential vulnerabilities. And it's not always that a configuration that you might have set up a month ago may be valid. It doesn't hurt to continuously test against that. And again, once you've fixed all those gaps, revalidate them to ensure that the attacker can now no longer get into our environment. And one last thing here is that we always do understand that you may or may not always have the resources to run a BAS tool. So we have recently launched SafeBreach as a service, which allows SafeBreach experts to architect a plan for solid security control validation, build and customize attacks based on your needs, your organizational environment, and and build your security baseline. And as part of that, we are actually offering a free ransomware assessment that you can take a look here. It's even on our website. You can take that assessment that will allow you to test your organizational readiness against certain ransomware threats. You don't need to be a customer to do that, but if you are a customer, you can also participate in this. So I just wanted to kind of quickly share that with you. And now I ask Francisco to show how awesome SafeBreach is. So I'm going to stop sharing here.
Great. All righty. Thanks, KJ. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to create these advanced attacks. And as KJ mentioned, the SafeBreach platform allows you to run attacks really based on any type of scenario that you may be interested in, whether it's last month's attack or yesterday's. We have different ways to enable maybe junior analysts, non-red teamers to come into the platform and still realize the value of security control validation through some of these built-in scenarios. And so, for example, an analyst might jump onto the platform here and immediately navigate to the SafeBreach scenarios, which provide built-in full attack kill chain coverage for anything that may be of interest for that organization. Now, SafeBreach works with the different clients of ours to understand what's important to them. And so maybe it could be as something as simple as or immediate rather as log4j, or it could be a particular ransomware crew that they're concerned about. And again, we can use the built-in scenarios which have already been laid out with the steps in the attack chain as the attack has played out. The attacks are predefined for the network infiltration, propagation stage, host infections, and all an analyst needs to do is really select the simulators that are going to participate in the attacks, right? And so we'll do that selecting an external attacker for our initial point of attack, and our initial point of compromise simulators will also be selected here. And we'll do that for the subsequent steps in the chain. Now, it's as simple as that. You set up your simulators with a predefined set of attacks, and you click run, and you're ready to begin to identify where your security controls have gaps. Another way to run attacks is through the built-in reports. As KJ mentioned, anytime there's a US CERT alert, some FBI, Department of Homeland Security alert, we're going to come in and publish a report that you can run directly from within the platform. So, by selecting the Run Simulations button here, you're going to be able to trigger all of the attacks that are associated with this particular attack campaign and populate a report that you can then use to take action. So it breaks down the different phases of the attack based on this particular ransomware strain. And, it's basically red, amber, green, management level friendly. Of course, we can always get into additional details for practitioners. And I think because the theme of this particular webinar is advanced attacks, I'm going to talk about how we enable an advanced attack within the platform, which will be a little bit more customized. So the breach scenarios are a good starting point, but the manual scenarios here allow us to go a little bit deeper, maybe focusing more on a set of attacks in the chain, where maybe we start out with log4j as that initial point of compromise. As we saw, back in December, everyone was worried about where they may have had exposure, and no one was really thinking about the next set of steps in that chain, right? So what happens after, a system has enabled an initial foothold? How do you measure that the subsequent steps in the attacker's ultimate goal are going to be detected, and you're going to be able to take action based on their activities. So we can create an advanced attack here by selecting the initial infiltration attacks. I select the external attacker as my initial incursion into the attack, and my initial point of compromises. In this case, it's an app demo, web app demo that we have running in our environment, another corporate application in Azure that allows us to validate if the protection mechanisms there will allow an attacker to get through using that vulnerability. And then we focus on network propagation. What does the attacker do from that point on? Maybe they dump credentials using Mimikatz. We'll see if that is something that is possible within these systems in the environment. And then we'll see if they can persist by creating a scheduled task, by masquerading around legitimate processes, and then attempting to discover other systems to move across. We can set up command and control activity. So all of the attacks in the library that our team has put together can be selected and used for for these different steps in the attack chain. And again, all of this is customizable. We work with customers to create these chains all the time, as well as to work on the reporting that goes behind it and the remediation aspect of it all. So in this case, for C2, we're going to use a Cobalt Strike beacon. And then subsequent steps will allow us to pull down some ransomware strains. Before executing the ransomware, we're going to stop some key services, make some modifications to volume shadow copies, a fun technique that the attackers use before executing ransomware and essentially holding you hostage for that data. And then we'll have the pre-execution phase of the attack, execution of the ransomware, and an ultimate step to exfiltrate the data out of the environment. At this point, this attack is ready to run. I've already run it here for time's sake, and we can go back to the home screen to look for that evidence. As you can see here, there's some attacks that are running currently, but we've already ran this attack. The advanced attack scenario that we just laid out has a quick snapshot showing you the tools in your stack that have been exercised as part of this series of attacks. Now, this is important because you can see right away that your WAF is being triggered, exercised as part of these attacks, as we would expect from the Log4j attack that we've established in the initial infiltration stage. And you can see FortiGate and Sentinel-1 also triggering in. We can see Sentinel-1 also reporting through Splunk, which is important. And also what these snapshots here provide you is the ability to see what tools are not triggering. So whether you have NDR in the environment, which is critical for getting good visibility into the actions of the attacker, if that is not showing up because the tap or the span port that it was sitting off of has gone dark, someone on the network team has, turned off the port, unplugged the cable, and you just don't know that something's not working until it's too late. So the quick snapshots here provide that visibility for you. From here, we can quickly lead into other parts of the environment. So the pillars that KJ was talking about, right? Reporting the dashboards that will enable security leaders to convey the level of risk that this introduces to the organization. We can quickly jump into that. We can quickly jump into insights from here, so get immediate recommendations based on these results. We can look at the MITRE attack heat map, and we can look, of course, at the individual results. So I'm going to jump right to the heat map here. And we'll see, because every attack in the library that the SafeBreach Labs team publishes is mapped to the MITRE attack framework, all the TTPs that are being exercised as part of the attacks will light up onto the heat map. What's also important is that we're able to layer the visibility from the security controls that we're integrated with. So as we saw in the previous screen, we had access to a WAF control. We had Sentinel-1 as well reporting in. And so we're able to quickly layer that score on and then see which TTPs are not being reported on, right? So this provides you with, again, some situational awareness to either improve logging to ensure that these particular techniques are being detected, potentially made part of correlation rules that will bubble up into notable events. So again, improving the mean time to detection for the SOC team. This is what the platform allows you to do using the context here from the attacks. I can quickly switch over to the all simulations tab. And still under the context of the attack, I can see the results for this particular attack. I can see some of the pre-execution stages. I have some built-in filters here, so I can use this log4j prevented filter, and I can quickly filter for that data. I'm going to just append this with log4j to get a bit more targeted. And here we are. I can click into one of the events. I can validate the goal of the attack. In this case, we want to see if it's possible to execute arbitrary code. Now, all of the code that we're executing is safe code. Everything that SafeBreach performs in the environment is safe to run in production, right? We're using the same vulnerability to exploit the application, but we're using safe payloads to validate that the application is vulnerable. So you'll see the description of the attack here. You'll see the parameters that are being used. And you'll see the classifications back to MITRE, to NIST, to different threat groups. You'll have the logs. So if you need to provide this evidence to, an application owner, and at times you might have some disbelief. So you can provide that. You can also run the attacks and generate PCAPs as evidence to hand off to other teams, maybe the network team. But what you can see here is exactly what we're looking for, right? Our Azure front door protection has prevented this attack from succeeding. And this is the evidence that you're going to need in order to make improvements. Now, in this case, we've prevented this, which is great, but it's also possible that we look at other data that's not as not preventing, right? So I can actually clear this filter and look at other controls. I can before I do that, I'm going to show you that defense in depth is working in this case as well. So we have another log4j attack here. This one is not actually exploiting the application, but rather simulating the traffic of an exploited application. So what this allows you to do is to have your security controls detect that pattern of communication and prevent it. And if we flip on over to the security events tab, we can look at the drop traffic from Fortinet here, again, coming in from the Splunk integration. And basically, we're triggering on a rule that is recognizing the log4j traffic and taking action on that, right? So that's exactly what we want to see. So I can go ahead and clear some of these filters and just focus on overall security controls for this particular attack. But what's really cool is that I can clear the filters and go out of context from this attack and just look at everything that the platform has been able to detect across all of my security controls in the stack, right? So whether it's Zscaler, whether it's CrowdStrike, whether it's Cortex, I'm going to be able to dive deep into the specifics of the effectiveness of these controls in my own environment. I'm going to flip on over from here and go to another pillar of the platform, and that is the remediation section under Insights. So Insights is going to provide me with some immediate recommendations that I can take to prevent basic findings, things like a malware transfer that is occurring in the network. The platform is able to automatically analyze all of the results. I can constrain these results to a specific test. So that could be that advanced scenario attack that I ran, or I can look at all of the tests that have been run and look at the recommendations, right? In this case, I can expand a particular finding as I'm talking about the malware network transfer. I can create detection rules right from here. I can download the raw IOCs as well to update individual tools, download recommendations for Defender, for Sentinel-1, or use universal translators like Sigma rules to create new detections on different security controls. If I click onto the blue bubbles here, pre-filter back into the actual evidence of the attack, again, with the context being carried over. I'm going to, from here, flip on over to the dashboards just to show you that advanced attack that we're looking at. So when you're talking about running simulations, it's really important to A, be able to understand the output, B, take that output, turn it into actions that can be used to improve defenses. And then C, you need to be able to track and trend that data over time. All right. And so the platform allows the generation of live dashboards, visualizations that are highly customizable, and the ability for leaders to go in and look at the underlying evidence of an attack. So all of these visualizations here can take you right back to the individual attacks that are being used to roll up into these high level metrics, right? And if we need to pivot and maybe compare whether the overall risk is based on a particular target, or if we want to break down that risk into a particular business unit, all of this is adjustable at a click of a button. You can provide metrics here and context. So as you can see, we have the number of attacks that were run, the type of attack, some basic metrics, right? But more importantly, the evidence behind it. So we can click in and see quickly which geographic locations, which parts of the environment are most affected, which ones are protected, which target platforms are going to have the most risk. The web application seems to be fairly well protected here. And again, we can dive right back into the evidence of that. The same thing here. We can see which security actions, which actions that the attacker took were not detected by controls, right? So when we stopped the service and attempted to modify the volume of shadow copies, we were allowed to do that on this particular target. And, we want to dig into that and be able to take corrective action so that visibility then contributes to, maybe a notable event. So if we don't have permissions, to run that should be flagged, or, if an attacker is able to escalate privileges and run that successfully, we should have visibility regardless, right? So at a high level, you'll get some visualizations around MITRE tactics, the type of attacks that were simulated, and of course, again, the evidence behind it. Where were these attacks successful? How were they missed? And being able to dive into that evidence very quickly back into the events that are attributed to that roll up. I know we only have 5 minutes left in the webinar, so I want to be mindful of that and answer any questions that may have come in. KJ, is there anything we should attend to?
Yes. So a couple of questions did come in. One of the questions was, how can we connect our servers or network to SafeBreach? Essentially, the person is trying to find out, how does data get transferred from our side, from their side to our side for us to effectively run simulations?
Sure. There are a couple of connection points. There's a management console, and then there's what we call simulators, essentially a piece of software that allows us to automate the role of attacker and victim. The way that you do that is you download a package right from the management console for the simulator type that you want to run. So that could be an endpoint agent for Windows, Mac, Linux, or a Docker container. And you point that agent as part of the installer, along with a verification code, back to the management console. It handshakes with the console, and then it becomes available here, as a green dot. Within 3 minutes, you're able to then begin to execute attacks. The context of whether an attack was successful or not comes from the integration that we have with the security controls or the sources of truth. And that's another integration point or connection back to the console.
Got it. Next question that we had was, are you able to map attacks to different reporting frameworks?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you saw, the attacks themselves are mapped to MITRE and NIST. So in the playbook itself, these attacks are automatically classified here. So you can look for a specific set of attacks that are focused on validating like least privilege, as an example, or specific attacks that are focused on validating a specific sub-technique in the attack framework. And of course, because there's a lot of flexibility in a platform, we can focus on attacks that are going to help validate FFIEC or segmentation policies for PCI compliance. So yeah, all of that is available to operators.
Thanks. You only have time for one last question. Can the tool or platform allow automated red teaming?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or can you replicate red teaming in the platform?
Absolutely. We actually have customers that run manual red team exercises and then use our platform as a regression testing tool. So as they go from exercise to exercise, you can set up these advanced attacks under plans. But within the playbook itself, there's a couple of ways to create your own attacks. You can do it via the GUI by just simply duplicating an existing attack of ours and then modifying it to include your own payloads, changing the actions themselves, swapping out different commands, etc. You can also create custom breach methods, essentially by introducing your own Python code based on templates that we provide you, or you looking up our documentation and building something entirely from scratch. But once you have what you're looking for, in this case, I've built out a port scanner using Python. And once I see that I'm able to run the attack and identify open ports, I can then publish this to the playbook. That becomes a building block in my attacker library. And then I can use those building blocks to create those advanced plans like we saw earlier.
And just to add to that, in early Q2, we are actually introducing a no-code automated red teaming capability. So that would also simplify this process immensely. There's literally, you don't need to even worry. Of course, you can choose to code, but you can literally drag and drop different modules and replicate a red team. That is about the time we have today. So thank you again to everyone who took time out of their busy day and chose to attend our session. We are really grateful. And if you do have any questions, please fill out the contact form on our website and we can immediately get back to you. If you are interested in our free ransomware assessment, as I mentioned before, feel free to fill out the form and we will follow up with you right away and ensure that you qualify for it. And then we can go ahead and run the assessment. So thank you again for taking the time and have a wonderful rest of the day, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.